Welcome to When Jetix Ruled the Multiplex, the films that shaped the MTV generation. 1982 saw the release of Amy Heckerling's Fast Times at Ridgemont High, based on a nonfiction book by journalist Cameron Crowe. Crowe wrote about his experiences spending a year undercover as a student in San Diego's Claremont High School studying the lives of teenagers. Crowe, who adapted his book into a screenplay, would go on to write and direct Single, Say Anything, Jerry Maguire, and Almost Famous. Fast Times at Ridgemont High was Heckerling's directorial debut, and it has become one of the foremost 80s teen classics. She'd also write and direct one of the foremost 90s teen classics, 1995's Clueless. We open at the fictional Ridgemont Mall in Southern California as the new wave hit We Got the Beat by the Go-Go's plays over a montage of teens working retail jobs, or flirting, or shopping, or playing arcade games, or simply hanging out. The Ridgemont Mall is actually the Sherman Oaks Galleria, which was ground zero for 80s mall culture as seen in teen films. It was used as a location in multiple films from this era, including two I've looked at here, Valley Girl and Night of the Comet. A teen named Mark Ratner, known to his friends as Rat, takes tickets at the movie theater while his friend Mike Damone scalps Van Halen tickets. Rat is played by Brian Backer in his most well-known role. Damone is played by Robert Romanus, who played a variety of entertaining sleazebags throughout the 80s, including recurring roles on the TV series Fame and The Facts of Life. Teens Linda and Stacy work at a pizza place in the mall food court. Linda is played by Phoebe Cates, whom we have already seen in Gremlins. Stacy is played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, who would go on to win acclaim for her dramatic performances in films like Last Exit to Brooklyn, Shortcuts, and Rush. Linda, who is jaded and sophisticated, serves as an informal mentor to Stacy, who is sexually inexperienced. When a man named Ron Johnson, played by D.W. Brown, comes into the pizza place, Linda encourages Stacy to flirt with him, even though he is 26 and Stacy is 15. Stacy lies about her age, and Ron Johnson asks for her phone number. Stacy's popular and outgoing brother Brad, played by Beverly Hills Cop star Judge Reinhold, whom we have seen in Gremlins, works at a burger joint called All-American Burger. Brad's customers include a trio of easygoing pothead skaters, who are played by Anthony Edwards, whom we just saw in Top Gun, Eric Stoltz, who'd go on to star in the 80s classics Mask and Some Kind of Wonderful, and two-time Academy Award winner Sean Penn. While Stoltz and Edwards' characters are unnamed, Penn is playing Jeff Spicoli, one of the most famous and well-loved characters in 80s teen film history. The role of Spicoli shot Penn to stardom. Throughout the 80s, he'd star in Bad Boys, Casualties of War, and Shanghai Surprise, the notorious 1986 bomb he made with his then-wife Madonna. Tom Petty's American Girl plays over a montage of students assembling for their first day of a new school year at Ridgemont High. The students include star football player Charles Jefferson, played by future Academy Award winner Forrest Whitaker, whom we have already seen in Vision Quest. Spicoli shows up late to history class, which is taught by the scathingly sarcastic Mr. Hand, played by Ray Walston, star of My Favorite Martian. Spicoli, who is perpetually tardy and perpetually stoned, makes the worst possible first impression on Mr. Hand, who kicks him out of class. Linda points out to Stacy in the lunchroom that no fewer than 3 girls at their school have decided to pattern themselves after Pat Benatar, which is a joke that is very specific to 1982. Linda is horrified by Stacy's lack of experience in the fine art of fellatio, and she gives her a crash course using carrots as a visual aid, to the delight of a bunch of dudes at a nearby table. In science class, which is taught by the eccentric Mr. Vargas, played by iconic character actor Vincent Schiavelli, Rat falls in love with Stacy at first sight. While Somebody's Baby by Jackson Browne plays, Stacy sneaks out at night to meet Ron Johnson. He takes her to an empty baseball field, and she loses her virginity to him on a blanket in the dugout. In school the next day, Stacy tells Linda all about her first sexual experience, which she found painful and anticlimactic. Linda is wearing feathers in her hair, which dangle from leather strips attached to a roach clip used as a barrette. This was a huge trend among young Gen Xers in 1982. You could buy them in booths at county fairs and carnivals. I loved those feathers in 1982, but I had a pixie cut, so the feathers would just sit on my shoulder, which looked profoundly stupid. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a treasure trove of these hyper-specific teen fashion trends from the early 80s. The most enduring trend is Spicoli's checkerboard Vans, which exploded in popularity after this film was released and are still a big seller today. I also want to give a shout out to Mike Damone's scarf that's patterned like a piano keyboard. If you showed up at a Halloween party dressed in checkerboard Vans, feathers attached to a roach clip, and a keyboard scarf, every Gen Xer in attendance could probably guess that you are dressed as a teenager from 1982. The Christmas season rolls around. Stacy is bummed because after a few months of dating, Ron Johnson has ghosted on her. Rat flirts with Stacy at the pizza place, and she gives him her number. Over at All-American Burger, Brad rehearses the breakup speech he's planning to deliver to his girlfriend and coworker Lisa, because he's decided he wants the freedom to sow his wild oats his final year in high school. While manning the register, Brad gets into a fight with an obnoxious customer and gets fired by his manager manager, played by Tom Nolan. Take a close look at Brad's unnamed co-workers in the background. One is played by Michael Wiley, whom we have seen in the greatest trash film of the 80s, Tough Turf, and the other is played by future Academy Award winner Nicolas Cage, who would break through to stardom the following year with Valley Girl. For a lighthearted sex romp, Fast Times at Ridgemont High boasts a surprising number of future Academy Award winners. Ridgemont High's varsity cheerleaders, led by Dinah, played by Pamela Springsteen, sister of Bruce, and Cindy, played by the wonderful Kelly Maroney, whom we have seen as a gun-toting, zombie-battling cheerleader in the cult favorite Night of the Comet, try to inspire a lackluster crowd at a pep rally. Demoralized by the loss of his job, Brad has decided to stick it out with Lisa, but Lisa, played by Amanda Weiss, dumps him at the rally. Rat and Stacy go on an awkward dinner date. Afterwards, Stacy tries her best to seduce Rat, but Rat gets overwhelmed and flees. Spicoli speeds around with Charles Jefferson's kid brother, played by Stanley Davis Jr., in Jefferson's flashy car, which they have borrowed without permission, while blasting Sammy Hagar's title track from the film, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Because Spicoli is, as always, profoundly stoned, he wrecks the car. Ridgemont High prepares for a big football game against arch-rival Lincoln High, which means all the students walk around wearing buttons and t-shirts that say "Kill Lincoln" and "Assassinate Lincoln." Spicoli spray paints Jefferson's busted-up car with anti-Ridgemont graffiti and leaves it parked in front of the school to make the crash look like a work of sabotage by Lincoln High. Enraged, Jefferson absolutely annihilates the Lincoln High team on the field, while Billy Squires' Fast Times, The Best Years of Our Lives plays. Damone and Rat drop by Stacy's home, while Stacy and Linda sunbathe by the pool. Brad spies on a bikini-clad Linda from the bathroom window and chokes the chicken while fantasizing about her to Moving in Stereo by the Cars. Linda walks in on Brad in the bathroom mid-wank, and they are both spectacularly mortified. At school, Spicoli's antics include having a pizza delivered in the middle of Mr. Hand's class. The pizza man is played by the late comedian Taylor Negron. Since her date with Rat went nowhere, Stacy decides to make a play for Mike Damone. She invites him over, and they end up having very fast and very unsatisfying sex in the pool house, after which he abruptly leaves. A demoralized Brad goes to work at a pirate-themed seafood restaurant. While delivering an order, he tries to flirt with the beautiful woman driving the car beside his, but she laughs at his goofy pirate costume. The beautiful woman is Nancy Wilson, powerhouse guitarist of the rock band Heart, who would later marry Cameron Crowe. Stacy tells Damone she's pregnant from their unsatisfying hookup. She asks him for half the cash for the abortion plus a ride to the clinic. Damone acts like a jerk, but eventually agrees. However, when he can't raise the cash, he fails to show up on the day of Stacy's appointment. While Stevie Nicks' Sleeping Angel plays, Stacy grabs a ride from Brad under the guise of going to the bowling alley across the street from the clinic. Brad is not fooled, and following the procedure, Stacy emerges from the clinic to find a sympathetic Brad waiting to drive her home. When Stacy tells Linda how Damone dropped the ball, Linda vandalizes Damone's car and locker. Rat and Damone almost come to blows in the boys' locker room over Damone's treatment of Stacy. Mr. Vargas takes his class on a field trip to a hospital where a coroner played by Martin Brest, director of Beverly Hills Cop and Scent of a Woman, shows off some autopsied cadavers. Stacy runs out to puke, and Rat comforts her. The end of the year approaches. As Spicoli gets ready for the pre-graduation dance, he's interrupted by Mr. Hand, who shows up at Spicoli's home for an 8-hour American history cram session as payback for all the time Spicoli wasted in his class. Spicoli makes a game effort to actually learn something, and they part on an amiable note. At the dance, Rat and Damone reconcile, and Stacy comforts Linda, who has been dumped by her much older boyfriend. Mr. Vargas introduces the kids to his smoking hot wife, who is played by Lana Clarkson, who was murdered by record producer Phil Spector in 2003. Summer rolls around. While working at the pizza place, Stacy tells Linda she's decided she'd rather have romance than sex, and Stacy and Rat tentatively rekindle their flirtation. Brad, who is now working at a convenience store, is held up at gunpoint by a robber played by James Russo, known for My Own Private Idaho and Donnie Brasco. Mid-hold-up, Spicoli wanders out of the bathroom, which distracts the robber long enough for Brad to hurl a pot of hot coffee in his face. While Oingo Boingo's Goodbye Goodbye plays, we get updates on all the characters. Brad was promoted to manager, Mike Damone was busted for scalping, Linda is living with her college psych professor, Rat and Stacy are dating, and Spicoli saved Brooke Shields from drowning, but blew all the reward money on hiring Van Halen to play at his birthday party. Fast Times at Ridgemont High spawned a short-lived TV sitcom called Fast Times, which starred Melrose Place's Courtney Thorne-Smith and Back to the Future's Claudia Wells as Stacy and Linda, with Grey's Anatomy heartthrob Patrick Dempsey as Mike Damone. I talked before in my analyses of Valley Girl and 16 Candles about how those two films plus Fast Times at Ridgemont High, formed the bridge between what teen films were and what they would ultimately become throughout the 80s, by presenting viewers with zany hijinks and madcap sexcapades intermingled with a respectful treatment of issues important to Gen X teens. Of those three films, Fast Times at Ridgemont High came first, and it set the template for teen films to follow, in which the teen protagonists divide their time between school and the mall, and they go on dates and break up with each other, and they have trouble with teachers in their classes, and it all culminates at a school dance. But despite those outer trappings, what struck me the most while watching Fast Times at Ridgemont High for the first time in decades is how different it is in tone and theme from the films that came after it, particularly the works of John Hughes, whose films include 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Pretty in Pink, all of which I've already looked at here. The John Hughes films treated high school in the 80s as a nonstop deluge of high-stakes humiliations and catastrophes, in which things that may seem to adults like they should be no big deal, like finding a date for prom, are treated like earth-shattering events. By contrast, Fast Times at Ridgemont High takes a much more laid-back approach to high school. The spirit of the film is encapsulated by Spicoli, who drifts through life and who will always probably do pretty well for himself, because nothing bothers him. The standout of a strong cast, Sean Penn, nails Spicoli's unique charm. Spicoli seems to like everyone. He doesn't seem to have a mean bone in his body. He's always happy. He screws up all the time, but it doesn't matter because he doesn't pay attention to consequences. And that works out surprisingly well for him. Even Mr. Hand, introduced as Spicoli's nemesis, is ultimately won over by his easygoing charm. Spicoli is the 80s teen embodiment of skater, surfer, and stoner culture, and he quickly became an archetype. Without Spicoli, there could be no Bill and Ted, no Harold and Kumar, no Seth Rogen and James Franco in Pineapple Express. He may be a screw-up, but he sure is likable. And that likability permeates much of Ridgemont High, which seems like a pretty relaxed place to spend a good chunk of your formative years. There are kids who are popular, like Charles Jefferson and Brad, and kids who are less popular, like Rat and Stacy, but the high school social hierarchy isn't as calcified as it is in, say, the John Hughes films. The whole premise of The Breakfast Club is how it took a set of extraordinary circumstances for 5 kids from different social spheres to even talk to each other. The kids at Ridgemont High would blink in confusion at the kids of The Breakfast Club's Shermer High because everyone at Ridgemont seems to more or less get along with everyone else. If students are getting shoved into lockers by bullies or taunted by mean girls in gym class, we don't see many signs of it. Fast Times at Ridgemont High was a hit with audiences, especially teens, although some critics disapproved of its blasé attitude toward teen sex. Its laid-back approach extends to its treatment of events that other teen films might regard as life-altering or potentially damaging, like 15-year-old Stacy losing her virginity to 26-year-old Ron Johnson and later getting pregnant by an unworthy suitor who abandons her in her moment of need. While the script is boundlessly sympathetic towards Stacy, the film adopts the viewpoint that this is no big deal and she's going to be fine. She gained some life experience and learned some things about herself, and now she knows she's better off without guys like Ron Johnson or Mike Damone in her life. This was an attitude adults found very alarming. My own parents were never too concerned about the films I watched during my formative years, but more than any other film of this era, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was the film that my friends' parents were most likely to ban their kids from watching. This is an ensemble film, and all the young actors are likable and well cast. Stacy is the closest thing the film has to a main character, simply because she's the only one to experience something resembling character development over the course of it. High school films are often about the transition into adulthood, but Fast Times at Ridgemont High has very little interest in watching these characters change and grow. It's content to follow them along through a series of agreeable vignettes as they fumble their way through a pretty chill year at Ridgemont High. Next time we're going to join Cameron, Sloan, and Ferris Bueller on their day off when I look at John Hughes' 1986 teen classic. Thank you for joining me here today, and I will meet you back here later.